the Solo Coach Podcast.
Howdy, folks, and welcome to today's episode of the Solo Coach Podcast. Today's guest is Klaus Schmitt. Klaus, welcome to the show.
Hello, good morning to England. A pleasure to have
Good
me.
morning to England and good afternoon to you, as we are officially international with today's show, as Klaus is joining us from Shanghai in China. So good morning. Don't know how to say good morning, but I know how to say ni hao. Hello and welcome from China. So to introduce Klaus, Klaus is a man with many strings to his bow. He's a professional coach, trainer, speaker, entrepreneur and facilitator, originally from Germany, who is coming to us live from Shanghai in China, where he's lived for over 20 years. I met Klaus through the global networking group led by Lisa Blackshaw-Howell. For anyone interested, it meets every second Tuesday of the month via Teams at 7:30 UK time. So it's a nice early one. You'll need your coffee, but it's a very energizing space. So I definitely recommend it to all the small business owners out there. I will pop a link down in the show notes for anyone who would like more information. So me and Klaus connected after a recent coaching workshop that I delivered, during which I asked the group for any budding podcast guests to reach out. Fast forward just over a month, and here we are. So firstly, Klaus, I wondered if you could tell us a little bit more about the work that you do now in Shanghai, and what sort of training seminars do you provide?
Yes, first of all, again, thanks for having me being part of the Solo Coach podcast. Yeah, as you said, I'm now working as a trainer, facilitator, coach mainly now for 12, 13 years. So yeah, it's just what I'm doing, meaning half coach, half trainer, sometimes even both areas to mix with each other. So I do coaching in like leadership a lot. Leadership development is a big topic for me. I totally believe in the fact that leaders and human beings can develop, and I want to focus on leaders. So the leadership development, it means a lot of communication. I love to work or to speak about the way how to communicate, of course, cross-cultural communication, as well as I'm living here in Asia for quite a long time and speaking mostly Chinese, actually. Chinese, English, German, French, maybe are the four main languages, just these four to mention first. And yeah, see them develop like, communication, cross-culture management, conflict management. I do quite a lot lately. Yesterday, I had a workshop on inclusive leadership. You know, diversity, inclusion, very popular nowadays and very interesting. So these are my training topics. And for coaching, of course, it's quite similar, meaning I do not choose a topic, but it's mainly it's leaders, it's entrepreneurs, managers who have similar topics like conflicts, how to motivate my team, again, cross-cultural communication, like working with Chinese or Chinese working with Westerners. So to sort out the dilemma, to get some clarity in the issue and find some solutions. So it's an absolutely exciting work here, living and working in China.
Thank you, Klaus. So lots for us to get into today. And you mentioned a couple of times there, cross-cultural, cultural differences. We're definitely going to be covering some of those today. But I'm curious as to how many people are you working with and speaking with all at once? What's the group sizes?
I don't want to say I'm open to all group sizes. Of course, I prefer to have smaller group sizes. Yesterday were like 17 people. Next week I will have 2 people, then 6 people. 2 weeks ago, I had 36 people. So it's all about, and maybe it's even referring to the Asian mindset, having this sense of adaptation or adaptability, meaning I do design my workshops according to the number of people, right? So if it's only 2 people, it can be very intense. Of course, I will have some coaching style as well in the facilitation, right? But if it's like 36 or 40, 50 people, it's more a little bit of lecturing, but some interactive stuff, but really depending as well on the time frame. So as I said, it's exciting because every assignment, every case is different. So it's not like using one template and reusing it later again. So I have as well to adapt and to see what are the needs of the participants, of the people in the workshop. What do they want to know? What are their goals? So it's always like a new a way to navigate through these workshops and to make it successful. Even by language, if I have Westerners or I have Chinese, or would I love as well to have an Asian group like Southeast Asia or APEC region. Yeah, they do share a lot of commonalities, but still have a lot of differences. So I'm doing online workshops with some leaders coming from APEC region, including China and Taiwan. So this is as well something, again, adapting to the size of the group.
Mm, thank you. And I'm really intrigued by facilitation and masterful facilitators like yourself. I think there's so much we can learn. And I'm wondering, how do you, in these group sizes, how do you keep everyone engaged, whether it's on a virtual call or whether it's on a face-to-face? Yeah.
Good questions. How to make everybody engage. First of all, I guess it's not my responsibility. If people don't want to get engaged, maybe they have to go to the workshop or training because their boss told them to do so, but they're totally busy in their mind or as well physically with a mobile. I can't help with running out of getting out of the workshop like room and getting in later again. This happens still quite a lot. But what I can do in my scope of facilitation and influence is connection, right? Interactivity and connection. I think I'm quite good in connecting with people wherever they come from, right? So once the connection is being established, I think they get kind of happy to share, to be heard, or to be understood. You know this as well as a coach, to fulfill one of the basic human needs which you have. We want to be understood. We want to be listened to. And this is something very essential to pay attention. Of course, if I have 40 people, it's much more difficult, but still I can use ways of connecting, including humor, which I use a lot. Even though I'm German, people sometimes are puzzled, like, how come this guy is not a German? Or I say, I'm not American, yeah, but we have to have fun as well. There's even a Chinese saying, I say it first in Chinese, um, um, 寓教于乐. Well, it's like a proverb, meaning once you learn something, you have to have fun, or 乐 means like, yeah, joy, fun. So bringing fun and entertainment and joy into the realm of learning, which I totally do, I think, as I'm a humorous person per se, but putting it into, training where this managers, even then when they're only German managers, which happens as well. Like next week, it's all about the human connection. I totally believe there's a lot of humor, or let's say lightness in them, even when learning, right? So again, I'm going now a bit beyond your question, but it's connecting so I would like to trigger this button to feel for engaging with me. But as I said, if there are any other factors which make them not engage with me, something which I learned through all my years of facilitation and training is not to take it personally because they have their own stuff in their mind, or they have a meeting or have some pressure. I don't know. I cannot make everyone happy. That's not my goal. Doesn't
Thank
make
you. That was
sense.
very
Yeah.
well. That was a
Yeah.
very well-rounded answer, and I loved how you developed on the question. I definitely won't attempt to repeat the Chinese proverb there, but thank you for sharing. Definitely, I have to ask you about your journey from Germany to China. Where did that begin?
Okay, I don't want to tell you now. I started my flight in Frankfurt. It began and landed in Shanghai. This would be boring on a deeper level. Yes. Oh, it began already 36 years ago. The first time I stepped my foot on Chinese ground. I was studying for 1 year in China many, many years ago, just to learn a bit about the language, philosophy, and history of China. I studied in Hangzhou, which is a city not too far away from Shanghai, like 200 kilometers in the south. And I I had mixed feelings in those days. China was different, you can imagine more than 30 years ago. But still, I got to know all this kind of ancient Chinese wisdom, including what I still love today, traditional Chinese medicine, some cultural aspects which often are being neglected or on the business level, of course, but they're still there because the mindset and mentality is there. So anyway, I finished my studies. I went back to Germany. I finished my studies there. I began to work. But as I was always like a kind of enthusiast for China and even for whole Asia, I came back once in a while. I had business trips to China. I was at exhibitions, fairs, meetings, and as life plays sometimes, I was kind of asked hang on, 21 years ago now by the German Chamber of Commerce here in Shanghai because I had contact with them. I had already quite a large network. Like, Klaus, do you want to come to Shanghai? We have like a vacancy, like in the marketing field at those days. And I was thinking for some weeks, still being back in Hamburg in Germany. And I said, why not? Let's come to China for 2 to 3 years and try how it feels, how it works out, how the career is going on. And you know how it is, maybe one day you wake up in the morning and 10 years have passed by. Meaning, of course, there was a lot of attraction, and not only career-wise, but for me, China is really still the country, of course, not perfect. There is no perfect country at all. Even COVID has shown to me every country has pros and cons. The same applies to China. I'm not the one running around with a t-shirt and saying, I love Shanghai, I love China, I never would do this. I say enthusiast. I see the positive points which I want to focus on, right? So I decided to stay here because I mentioned diversity already before. It's very diverse. It's, for me, a country of contradiction. It's not like having so much regularity. We talked about it before. So many changes are going on here, and you have to like reorientate, I think, much more often than just easily said compared to Germany, where there are more standards and norms. Here, for me, first of all, China is a country of contradiction. You cannot always say China is like this or Chinese are like that. No, it always depends on the very case. Of course, there's like an overall cultural meta level, or call it foundation. This is one thing, and still a lot of things in China which are fascinating, like when you talk with Chinese and they say no, or Chinese male, it opens the door for something new. So you should think about, okay, there's a no. It's not like the German no or yes, which is very strict, rigid, and there's only yes or no. No, in China, no means, okay, you might try a different approach, a different way to get to your mission or find a way out. So it for me, China is very relative in everything, meaning it gives me a chance. Of course, other countries would give me a chance as well in Germany and the UK, but to develop in a way that I can enlarge my scope of behavior, my scope of personality, my scope of communication style, for instance, right? Give you a short example, me being German, I tend to be very direct in my communication style. I love directness. For me, in my trainings, I always say to be direct is kindness even, yeah, to be kind. But it's always about how you voice, how you articulate the way of being direct. And in my core value, core communication style, I'm still direct, but I have learned to be totally indirect if the situation requires. It doesn't mean I give up myself now, as I have some coaching clients coming from the West, and they're kind of afraid to having to give up their personality, because they're working with Chinese, or they have to lead Chinese people, or they're being led by Chinese people, and say, I cannot be myself anymore. So, of course you can. What is your core? What is your core behavior, your core principles, your core values? And then navigate out to the outer side. So meaning I can be very, like the example, very indirect, but it's just a start to relate to people. As I said before, to connect to people, you should be quite indirect in Asia, not only in China, right? If you meet a person the first time and whatever topic is coming up and you're not familiar with the person yet, and ask instantly, like, what do you think, David? What do you think about it? Please tell me your honest opinion. And maybe you even wouldn't agree with my opinion, which I voiced before, you might be in trouble, or meaning just you wouldn't get any response. This doesn't make sense. It's not helpful for our continuation of whatever we want to do, project or whatever, training and project. Yeah. So I learned to navigate through these different positions on a bar, I would say, being less direct, being very direct, but not aggressive as well. This is something I learned a lot, because directness can easily be perceived as aggression or aggressiveness. So I got some of the feedback, and my perception or my approach, my yeah, I didn't have any maybe to be aggressive, but it was perceived in this way. And it made me, of course, reflect what is happening there. So what I want to say is just this, enlarging the scope of behavior makes, I don't want to say every person, I only can talk about myself, right? More expanded, richer, more diverse. I don't want to say more interesting, maybe it is, but again, more adaptive and flexible in tuning into different people, right? And to um, connect with them. Isn't that what we want, or even what is lacking all over the world? Like, people do not know any way how to connect. They connect with a mobile, maybe, but it's not a human connection. And this is so valuable. This has such a high value. And I think China, I'm giving quite a long answer, sorry. To the question, what makes me, it was not a question, but I just frame it a little bit. What makes me stay in China? So, and as long as there's a plane flying out from Shanghai to go home or to go to wherever outside of China, which was not the case at COVID, always, for me, it's a good choice. Even though people might say, oh, a lot of disadvantages, right? Cons in China, politics, maybe different things. Okay, right. But if we begin to talk about England, UK, or Germany, we get very critical either, right? So there's no perfection. So again, focusing on well, it sounds a bit like funny, focusing on the bright side of life, which we still can, and I can still find.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Comprehensive answer there, and I like how you developed it into the next question, making my life very easy. But I definitely want to talk more about the contradiction you've observed and the sort of the cultural differences between the East and West. But before we do, I wanted to go right back to 1990, when you took that journey from Germany to study in China. That feels like a very big, bold move, and I imagine not very many people did that at that time. And I'm curious as to, did you grow up always knowing that you wanted to go study in China, or where did the idea and the concept to go from Germany to study and train in China come from for you?
It was an external idea, actually. It was not my concept or plan. For me personally, to get aware of my plan, or let's say mission in life, was quite late. 1990, I was still very young. I didn't know at all what I was meant to be, what do I want to work in. I was following what was given to me, right? So in this time, for this special occasion, it was just an exchange program. I was lucky to get into this exchange program between my university in Germany and this university in Hangzhou. So I thought, okay, let's try it. Meaning it was for free as well, though there were no costs involved. But I guess it's still, if you talk about personality or attitude, having till today still this openness. And you mentioned it, actually, you said you're curious. Of course you're curious, you're having this podcast, but I have this curiosity as well. So I talk a lot about curiosity in my workshops and trainings as well. Keeping this curiosity, wanting to find out what is going on in other people or now about our topic in other countries, in other cultures, in other heads, what is going on in their different mentality. Having and keeping this curiosity, I think, is a big drive in my life.
Mm. No, I appreciate that. And your story really is a testament to the value of exchange programs, isn't it? And I know that in recent times, quite a few of those such programs, I think, have suffered with economic changes in the UK. I think we've lost a few of
Mm,
them. But for me,
mm,
it shows the importance of us having those programs, those cultural exchanges, and
mm.
of travel more broadly in general, which I know we're both a huge fan of.
Absolutely.
Um, so I wanted to again bring you back to as you mentioned, the contradiction of China. And I know I saw on LinkedIn you'd written an article a few years ago. Sadly, it was in German. I couldn't read it. I'm sure there's an English translation available. You'd written an article about the cultural differences that you've observed between Germany and China. And I wondered if we
Mm,
could zoom in on those more, because I know we had a great conversation prior to the podcast about what the West can learn from the East. So I definitely want
mm.
to hand the microphone to you again to ask you more about these cultural differences.
Yeah, my pleasure. I could, of course, talk about it for 3 hours at least. Let me kind of pinpoint the main differences I see now spontaneously, and we touched on them last time. I think looking, as I said, onto the bright side, right? It's like, for instance, Germany. When I go there, mm, I see, of course, it's cultural conditioned. There's one truth in Germany. There's one thing that's yes or no. I mentioned already, we have one God coming from our religion. And so there's only one thing which is right. So I meet people in Germany or met people like saying, okay, I'm right. But this means automatically, like, hello, does this person mean I'm wrong? Okay, can happen, right? It doesn't have to happen back in the Western Europe or in Germany. But as I see it in China, or maybe in other countries in Asia as well, there is no single truth. So it comes as well, I would say, from religion. They don't have this philosophy coming from Greece and Aristotle and stuff, talking about what is the truth. There's only one and single truth, not in China. As everything I said before, it's flexible. So even truth. So there can exist different truths, truth at the same time. Meaning nobody would say like, yes, but you said yes yesterday, now it's no, or yeah, but it can change. Even there's another Chinese saying, um, what is the English translation? Plans cannot catch up with changes, right? 计划赶不上变化 in Chinese. So you say something, or even maybe you signed a contract. When we talk a little bit about the business side, for us Germans, everything is, of course, now written in stone, because before we sign a contract, we should have discussed about the content, right? Every detail, the way we want to collaborate, what are the first steps, what are the goals. Okay. And then I hope nothing will be changed. But in China, it's a bit different, meaning signing a contract means, okay, we both show our willingness to collaborate. But then all the changes, modifications, alterations begin. And a lot of Westerners already, I would say, drove crazy, maybe left China because they couldn't deal with it. Meaning, again, going back to this truth or fact stuff, it changes so much, it could make people maybe confused a little bit. But what you said before maybe has no validity anymore today because the circumstances have changed, or now we're talking to another person. So truth is depending as well on the relationship so much. It's depending on time much more than in England or Germany, right? We have the one truth. But having this said, meaning I have always to get deeper into understanding what this person means, even maybe by not saying it, meaning a lot of implicit communication, as you might know, is happening not only in China, but all over Asia, I would say. So to understand or in other words, to be able to read between the lines as well is something which is very important, right? Next to having different truths, again, this means like nobody, or very seldom somebody would say in China, but I'm right, so you're wrong. No, we both can be right. Isn't this wonderful? It doesn't mean that there are no conflicts in China. Don't misunderstand me. There are still a lot of conflicts going on, but having this different mindset or attitude, right? So I was shifting a little bit now to communication already when I said explicit versus implicit. We Germans totally communicate in a very explicit way, right? We say yes or no. We want to get directly and quickly down to the point and tell the main message, right? This is for us, it's saving time, it's time management, it's directness, it's efficiency. In China, not necessarily. Again, it depends on the person I'm talking about. Or it depends as well if my main message is maybe a negative one, like a negative news, something which didn't go right or some failure. Of course, I put it only at the end. So you have to have a lot of patience even to listen, or this person is not saying it at all. So you have to observe the body language, or you have to really listen carefully what words are not being said, because these words are much more important than the words which are being said. Again, reading between the lines, I would say, is one of the biggest challenge for expats, for foreigners here in China, especially if they're not able to speak Chinese, yes. So again, a big cultural difference. So there's so many differences here, mixing life and work. I always thought it's a strange distinction, especially coming from the West. Like, yeah, okay, this is life, you're having fun, relaxing, this is work. Now, very diligently work, like from 9 to 5 or whatever. And in China, it goes together. Of course, Chinese can be very diligent as well, but not separating the life sphere and the work sphere, but blending it in together. And in this aspect, I think I have totally become Chinese because I'm working freelance. I have my own small company, but still I can manage my own time. Luckily, of course, I'm fortunate, I know. But meaning with a business partner or cooperation partner, maybe I can make a friend, or he or she is offering like, okay, let's go out for dinner, socializing. So the boundaries or the borders are not very clear. The same applies to getting to know a new person, like a friend, a possible friend, then it's very natural in China to ask, "Oh, what are you doing? What am I doing? Could we cooperate? No idea. There's no plan, no business plan, but is there something I think we could cooperate, right? You're quite a nice guy, Klaus, or the other person. So talking about this is so different in my culture, where we try to keep these two spheres totally separated.
Mm. Thanks, Klaus. I really like what you said about the. I remember in our last conversation, I said I'd read an English translation of the Tao Te Ching, and that was talking about the concept of paradoxical unity, given that
Mm.
some things are neither right nor wrong, that they're neither and both. They just are as they are. And I can think of numerous times being in meetings, even recently, where someone would say, we need to do this, we need to take this action for these reasons. And someone would say, we can't take these actions for these
Mm.
reasons. And you'd be left saying, well, you're both right. Yes, we do need to take this course of action. And yes, we also shouldn't. But yeah, you're neither right nor wrong, but together we need to come up with a collaborative solution that's going to fulfill most of the requirements, but no doubt not going to please all of the people. So
Absolutely. You're going even well back to the Tao Te Ching, very great stuff in philosophy, which still I think Chinese are quite aware of, meaning they don't talk about the Tao Te Ching or Taoism or Buddhism, but in their DNA, there are a lot of these values and mentality going on. It makes me think as well of the way when you talk about collaboration, right? It's not about everybody has to be right. um, when there's a problem. What I find as a big difference as well, compared, I would say, to the Western European approach, is um, maybe there is a problem. We want to find a solution. So in Germany, it might take some time to find out, okay, what is the root cause or who was the culprit, and kind of being stuck there. I don't want to say it doesn't make sense. It's very important to find out what is the cause. But what
Where
I
is the
like
blame?
yes, or blaming, right?
Mhm.
What I like in China a lot, I'm a bit idealizing it now, but it's talking about the culture here. It's always about, again, I go by Chinese, 想办法. And 想办法meaning I just find a way, finding a solution. Let's go forward. Whatever happened, okay, we will look at it. Maybe not now, maybe later, but let's find a way to make it somehow. And we can see it not only meaning we're talking about Chinese culture, but look at the economy. Look at all the achievements China has done the last 10, 15, 20 years. And I have, of course, been observing China very closely because, yeah, as I said, it was 36 years ago I stepped my first visit, which I took to China. So seeing this enormous development, of course, there again are pros and cons, but still the country is profiting along a lot. And why can this happen? Because of this different approach China is taking as well, not being stuck so much in, okay, we have to blame this or okay, saying something negative. Of course, environmental issues are very important. Maybe they're being put aside a little bit, which is not the best thing. But again, it's about how can we develop or how can we like serve the people, making the life of the people more easier and more convenient in China, meaning for Chinese people. Yeah, you see all the digitalization and robotics and AI and stuff. They are so fast, meaning all this speed. Everybody's talking about this China speed, isn't it? Right. So all the Chinese, my trainings, the managers say unisono, so they Germans are too slow. So they say, but it makes sense because they're very result oriented. It's more the result which is crucial and essential. For us Germans, it's more, of course, the result and the goal is very important, but we have to pay attention and focus on every step, right? The whole process.
Process.
Nothing should be skipped. And this can take a long time because I don't want to say it's better or worse, but in every step there are meetings, everybody should be asked, everybody's opinion is important. Maybe we should find a consensus, quite democratic as we are, which is not necessarily a thing in China. So it's more done in a more quicker way often, right? So, but the interesting thing is when I'm having trainings with Westerners or Germans, they say it's the same. They say, Chinese are so slow. And I think, what is happening now? Who is slow now? But they are talking about totally different layers of culture. When I talk about the speed, of course, China is very fast. Germany is slow. Well, it is slow. Not only the German railway nowadays, and it's not on time anymore more in Germany. But when Germans talk about the slowliness of Chinese, it's more about getting to know someone or building trust. This can take much more time. Or what I said before, if you were Chinese, David, and I just got to know you and ask you, I want to know your professional expertise and opinion about something, but you don't tell me. And I think, could you please quickly tell me your opinion what you do? Maybe you wouldn't, because you didn't establish the right relationship and trust with me yet. So this is the thing Germans would say Chinese are more slow, which makes sense, but it's a totally different level
Mm. And
of interaction.
yeah, and I'm
Yeah.
curious, Klaus, as to what's the reason? Is there any reason behind people? Are people actively withholding their opinion, or is it just culturally not the done thing to share your opinion almost immediately? To like inflict your opinion on someone that you've only just met. Um, is it just a cultural norm, or is it for fear of causing offence? Where does that come from?
Yeah. I think it's mainly cultural norm, but as always, there are three factors which contribute to behavior, which is culture, which is personality and situation. So it depends really on all three, but normally personality exceeds. So you cannot say all Chinese are introvert or something. We have, of course, extrovert. In my training yesterday, most of the people said because sales and marketing, they were extrovert people, but it's a cultural norm as well. Think of the, I think most important value in China is harmony. Harmony. It's not in our country. So in Germany, harmony would be secondary because harmony is an illusion. We have to work together. So there are friction, there's conflict. So let's talk about facts. That's what Germans always say, factual conversation. But in China, exactly what you said. Why would you tell me your personal opinion? First of all, again, it takes much more time to establish a relationship, meaning, can you really trust me? You just have known me maybe for a short time, right? So is a connection there? That's the first thing. And then maybe you have a different opinion than I have. So it's like maybe you lose face. Maybe you would think you make me lose face. Or even another word, again, Chinese, it's often used mafan. Mafan means on inconvenience or trouble. So Chinese don't want to give mafan, trouble or inconvenience to other people. Whereas we Westerners say, no, come on, tell me the truth. Again, yeah, we go by the truth. Tell me what is the fact, what is the dilemma? Come on, right away. Chinese maybe would rather hold back first, unless there's this bridge or connection of trust, safety, of course, very important, psychology safety to build, especially in teams. I would say everywhere in the world, but it takes just a little bit more time maybe here because all these worries and concerns of losing face. And it's a very collectivistic society anyway, still, right? We are much more individualistic than collectivistic in the West. So it's much more important what is good for the team. What are people thinking about my expression, my behavior, my words might be more crucial for people than just I am what I am, or think what I say out loudly, what I think, which we Westerners would more have in our mind. This is not the way the education is happening here. Much more introvert, much more holding back, much more considering what would other people think about me. That makes sense? So a lot of reason for this reaction or behavior.
It makes sense, and I'm glad you mentioned the word harmony. I was thinking earlier as you were speaking about different attitudes to what we call in the West, the work-life balance. I've recently read articles about how people are encouraging the new phrase, the work-life harmony, meaning instead of trying to force this balance that kind of none of us can ever find, forcing work alongside life, and there's conflict there naturally. But to understand, to see work-life harmony is more of a, there's two systems at play, but they're in service of each other. The work is in service of having a harmonious family life, and harmonious family life is then in service of work. So sometimes, if you're in the middle of a busy project, you might work extra hours. And then other times you might be able to take some time back and work with your family. But recognizing that these two systems need to exist alongside each other rather than trying to force some kind of balance to take place that just eludes us all. I definitely think we can learn something from that.
Yeah, I think I don't want to say again like China or Germany or England is better. It's just acknowledging these differences and see how they can blend together, how you can learn from each other. But it needs openness, it needs open-mindedness, it needs curiosity, it needs listening. Is this happening actually? This is a question too. And again, just to avoid some misunderstanding, my point is not to tell everyone China is totally in harmony, like it's a harmonious country, no conflict, everybody's super happy. No, this is not the case. A lot of frustration, a lot of conflict, but it's a concept, it's a value, right? Very intrinsically conditioned. It's not that everything you see here is in harmony, but the first picture or image which is given to you you come to China, you might see a new workplace. They try to present it a little bit like it's wonderful. Everything is right. Everything is being put in a beautiful place. It's a bit like you enter a theater, you're seeing a show. Yeah. I don't want to say fake, did I? No, but it's harmony. It's being made or performed in a harmonious way. And this is the first thing. And of course, you don't have to believe it, meaning you shouldn't believe it, because your task is to go behind the stage, backstage, and really look what is going on. That's the way it works in China. But first of all, this harmony or harmonious image is being presented to you because it's an inner or intrinsic drive for people to show themselves first in harmony or want to speak in harmony. But it doesn't mean that there are no conflicts or no disagreement. Of course it is. But if you want to get to this, it takes again time to find out why really do you do disagree, you have another opinion, you're totally opposing to my point of view. It needs some time to find it out again. But the first drive is putting things, showing it in a harmonious way.
Yes. I wanted to draw upon something you mentioned in our last call together in these cultural differences you've observed. And that was what you've observed as the Chinese attitude to hardship, to problems and obstacles, and the way that I know I'm very guilty of spending time ruminating and wallowing and focusing and sometimes obsessing over the failure and what's gone wrong and feeling very deflated and disappointed for a prolonged period. And you were telling me in the last call that that's a little different in China, which I shall let you share.
Yeah, meaning of course people are ruminating here a lot as well and worrying. I wouldn't say there's not fear, but it's like they're used not only to the changes. I told you before by this Chinese saying, they're so much used to just adapt. Adapting as well to hardship. The Chinese word like it means 吃苦 means eating bitterness. You're like 很吃苦的. Of course, in all our cultures, in former times, we had bitter times, meaning we had hardships a lot more than nowadays. Now, China is very modernized and very convenient, especially in the cities. But people are more, through the history, maybe have a higher resilience as well, taking more of the hardship. Of course, this is connected, everything I'm saying, of course, connected or interrelated as well to collectivism, meaning it's not important what I'm thinking, maybe adapting or integrating myself more into the community. So I just take it. Or you mentioned over time as well a few minutes ago, right? Of course, there are trade unions in China, official ones, but nobody would care, meaning even laws are quite flexible, I would say. Yeah, I'm very cautious to say this now, meaning doing overtime. I know I hear it so often from Chinese when I ask and they answer, I go again Chinese, they say, 习惯就可以了,习惯就可以了, meaning I just have to get used to this and it's okay. This is a mindset which makes you maybe more easily, I don't want to say get out of troubles, but get into action, into doing. And by getting into doing, maybe you're getting into some sort of productivity or you find a solution on the way. When I said before, 想办法, finding a way, finding a solution, right? So instead of getting stuck, what you said a little bit, ruminating, like or thinking a long time. Of course, people do this, and we could even analyze different generations now in China as not only in the West, we have Gen Z and we have now Gen Alpha as well. So the younger people, of course, seeing it differently as well, but still the overall mindset of not so much emphasizing in negativity and fear. Well, of course, we all know media censored here in China. You see, of course, much less negative news. Is it good or bad? Is it the truth? We don't know. But people are not being bombarded, let's say, here when I look at German news, which is fine, okay, but this bombardment of negativity makes people easily depressed, I would say, much more easily. And I think the Chinese DNA is maybe as well looking back into former times. They compare a lot, which has pros and cons, right? As they do never compare, but when they compare, they find some accomplishment, some sense of achievement, something to be happy, like saying, now we are much more well off or faring better than 20, 30 years ago, 50 years ago than our parents. So, to get motivated and getting more optimistic about life, I think this is a big thing, the optimism here. It has changed a little bit after COVID, to be honest. There is some shift, but I'm still going back to this very Chinese DNA of having this optimism, like we will make it, we can do it. Well, it's not, this slogan is not coming from China per se, as we know, but there is this overall not lamenting, whining, blaming, state. Of course,
Shaming.
personality, persons can have it, but when I talk about cultures, it's much less visible here. So maybe one word to put it together, I was asked like, what is the main difference? I was stuck in Germany as well when there was COVID, and I wanted to go back to Asia. So what is the main difference? What would me make go back to Asia? Of course, not only work-wise and life-wise, but I had the word lightness in mind. I shared it with you already. It's more light. Okay, you could say only for me because I'm a foreigner, but it's just, I mean, not the comfort or the money I have, more or less. It's the lightness of maybe letting go of bad stuff and negative stuff and not holding on it, what you just said before, and ruminating on it. And this is bad and blah, blah, blah. Maybe accepting things. This is nothing, not only adapting, but accepting things. This is, I think, one of the main root or causes when people say in Chinese what I said before. I just have to get used to this, then it's okay. I think no German would say this. Yeah,
Thank you, Klaus. And I'm wondering as well, in the interest of impartiality, if we were to flip the conversation 180 degrees, do you believe there's anything that the East and China can learn from the West, from Germany and the UK?
absolutely. I would say in terms of um, it's just the opposite of what I said before, meaning being more direct. Chinese often misunderstand directness with aggression. So I tell them, no, it's a different thing. Learning to be more direct, more open, and there's no harm in sharing your own opinion, right? This is something they could learn because it could um, easen up some collaboration, being in the conversation more quick in getting down to the point, what they really want, talking about their needs and expectations, right? Instead of holding back and what I said, waiting, what Germans were criticizing by saying Chinese are slow, because this is something they could speak up and speed up both as well. But it's again, it's cultural. It's a mainly cultural embedded, but learning as well from this. Yeah, I would say openness, diversity. There's diversity in China, but I think like when you look at different nations living together from different countries in the West, here, of course, it's still China versus foreigners. In China, always, yeah, they do distinguish a lot. So everything is still Chinese, and look at the massive high number of people which are living here. So learning about like yeah, being open and maybe just learning new stuff and implying Western approaches which are not bad at all in their daily life. Having the curiosity to find out what is really going on. I always go back to openness. I would say this is one of the main thing and learning, but this is actually applies to both sides. learning to shift perspective. This is one of the big solutions what we have maybe in the world now. Are we willing to shift perspective, right? Having empathy for other people. All humans could or should learn more about this. And this applies, of course, as well for Chinese. Because often I can understand them after all this long time in China, meaning what they mean, their values, but they cannot really relate to me. But of course, it depends as well on the fact, have they been abroad? Have they been spending time abroad or studying abroad? They have a brighter, or not brighter, so broader mindset, I wanted to say maybe anyway. But Chinese per se, and majority hasn't left China, so it needs maybe even new approaches of education. Again, speaking up, being more confident about your own opinion is something which is important. We in the West learn about a lot about confidence, about um, skills to speak up, to be proud of ourselves. I'm not talking about being over proud or even some, yeah, selfish people or narcissistic people. This is another thing. There's always like, we don't have to go to the extreme, but yeah, just to learn to stand up for your stuff and speak it out. I would say this is something Chinese could learn as well. Yeah, it's not only one-sided, as you say. It's always to meet in the middle. So whatever collaboration Western or Chinese have, maybe we're coming like to a final like resume, like a summary or something, is talking about ground rules. First of all, the first steps are always awareness and understanding, which can take a long time already. Not only 1 day of training or 2 days of training, but really because it's their own work to get aware of things. Oh, and maybe even not, I don't talk about logic anymore. One example, because there is no, what is logic? When you want to tell me, explain to me what is logic, I don't buy it, because for other people, logic means something totally different. So getting aware of these different standpoints, where I am, what is your mentality, what is your value, and then understanding. And then we have to talk about the way we want to collaborate, meaning we have to establish ground rules and not taking it for granted, like, you are human, I'm human. If you were Chinese, of course we can do it. No, I use my approach, you use your approach, and we might collide at a certain stage, right? Because or clash because it doesn't fit together. So it's always essential to speak out, but it takes time, maybe for Chinese and Asians a bit longer, to really openly, transparently talk about all the issues or the differences they have, and then meet somewhere to establish some ground rules which are working for both sides.
Thank you, Carsten. No, I enjoyed your summary there and how you brought that to a conclusion. And I absolutely agree in terms of recognizing our differences and then also recognizing what we have in common and getting clear
Yes.
on what we both ultimately want. It's just like the beginning of a good conversation of any sort, really. Establishing expectations and boundaries. And yeah, it's interesting. We've spoken about kind of historically your journey in coming to China. So we've spoken about the past, and then we've spoken about the kind of the current cultural differences you recognise. So I wonder, as we start to draw our conversation to a close, I wonder if we speak about the future a little bit. What are you excited for that in the near to distant future, presumably remaining living in Shanghai in China? What are you looking forward to, and what are you excited about looking to the future?
So are you asking about my personal life, or asking like how I see China in the future? So, or do you mean it for both sides?
Well, I mean for both sides, but yeah, for you specifically, what do you see that's in the making? What do you believe there is to look forward to?
A lot of things. Well, I'm looking forward to, it's just, my endeavor here in life, or what I call mission, is really to raise awareness and maybe to have to help to support people, of course, not only in the cross-cultural way, but to bridge the gaps between cultures, between different humans, even coming from the same culture. And this will be a companion of my life, this work, well, for all my life, I would say. So I'm looking forward to getting always new projects, new clients. I'm working for German companies, for American companies. For yesterday was an Italian company. So the world is so amazing and fascinating to see different nuances coming out, and this will go on till the end of my life, I guess. So there is my plan of life actually is quite, meaning I know my mission, but my plans are not very long term because I'm not Chinese, of course, but I know changes will come. So I don't want to invest too much time in having a 3 years or 4 years plan. And often Chinese are getting very confused when they're working with Germany, for instance, and they're like requesting a 5 years plan and they're getting crazy. They have no idea what will happen in 5 years. So many things will change, a customer behavior or the whole market and stuff, right? How can I predict it? So I don't want to predict anything. I want to go with the flow. I want to stay adaptive. I want to see that I feel good, of course, and staying in this kind of work-life balance. Having enough time for myself, absolutely my me time, taking care for myself, but as well for my friends, and still exploring the whole world, not only China. I'm traveling as well. I love to travel, and that's it. And seeing what is going on in the world, especially here in China. And if something bad happens, whatever bad means, again, I have 2 suitcases. I can pack it very quickly and leave China. Always to have options in life. This is the thing. But I know very deeply what I'm doing, what is my work, and this is the most comforting or even satisfying stuff. Having knowing this and going further. This is um, um, even continuation of knowing my core and of course being able to sell myself as well. So with all the assets and strengths I have. So going on in life like this, and I know it will still unfold in a very positive way. So it's not very explicit what I was talking about, but still it's maybe kind of philosophy or let's say trust which I have.
No, that your answer there aligned well with what you were saying about not being too specific and not forcing things to, like you say, a specific 5 year plan, but it's more about your philosophy, your approach, and how you're going to face these next few years. So
Right.
I enjoyed it. And my second to last question is if people are interested in finding out more about you and your work and getting in touch, where would you recommend they go to find you online?
I think the best thing is nowadays really going onto my LinkedIn page. There are all the contact information and some articles I was writing. I think this is a good way to get in contact with me.
And I'll definitely put a link to your LinkedIn profile in the show notes down below. And my final question for today's conversation, Klaus, I'm going to really put you on the spot now, which I love to do with my guests. What would be your message to the world if everyone were listening right now?
If everyone was listening, I hope everybody will soon listen. Well, the main message, well, let me be a preacher for now, for one word. Not only think about China, as I'm working with different people coming from different cultures and nations and see what's going on, what dilemmas they have, conflicts. I would say just try to be less judgmental. Being less judgmental. Talk about the facts. Don't judge so quickly. Try to listen first, observe what is going on, ask the right questions, and then you will have your opinion. Nowadays, people get judgmental so quickly and easily, which I say. This is not contributing to the whole um, finding a solution for the whole human dilemma or the world, how to say, global crisis. And my advice, of course, won't be a solution either, but it could be approach of connecting better, more easily, and having more understanding. As I said before, awareness and understanding are always the first steps for getting to some final solution. So just getting aware of when do you judge actually, when do people judge, getting rid of putting these judgments aside for a moment and trying to look deeply into what is happening. Of course, this has to do as well with biases. We are all biased, even by media. When we talk about China, the German media, totally maybe biased, I would say, having a lot of stereotypes and stuff about China. But now we have the option, the possibility to see different sources or resources of what is happening somewhere else, not believing or looking at only one source, because the more sources you're looking at, the more different points of views you get and can make up your opinion and be less judgmental. I think this is one point which is very important for me to speak it out.
Thank you for sharing. You make me think of Stephen Covey's work in his famous book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And one of his habits was to seek first to understand and then to be understood. But not because we seek first to be understood and then secondary to actually understand. But if we, like you say, if we withhold our judgment and exercise some compassion and empathy for our fellow human and just try to see things from their perspective before we jump in with our own perspective, perhaps that would resolve many conflicts before they became so much of a conflict down the line.
And maybe even just one more word, what you were saying about understanding. We want to be understood, which is a human need, but maybe conveying first some understanding. We don't have to understand like from a Western perspective, and we cannot understand China fully. How could we? But maybe some things to convey understanding why people do it in this or that way, instead of very quickly, instantly put some strong opinion or even judgment in it. Yeah. This is something I would speak out as a recommendation as well.
Absolutely, but possibly slightly cliche to say it, but sometimes sometimes to slow down a little in order to speed up overall.
Absolutely, I do fully agree. Great.
Wonderful. And on that lovely paradoxical note, a great place to end today's conversation. And I just want to say a huge thank you from me and all of my listeners who I know are going to really enjoy this show. It's the first time we've gone live to China, and it's the first time we've been taught some Chinese phrases on the show. So thank you for enlightening us and for sharing some of your time and your experiences with us this morning, Klaus. I really appreciate it.
I loved it. It was a pleasure for me. Thanks a lot, David.
The Solo Coach Podcast.